Okay, folks, let's update on the UK Scotland House Price Index. So this is the Scotland House Price Index. This is the key data that is the most important data you'll ever get in terms of house prices itself. This is the factual information, all the data gathered together by the Scottish Government and the Office of National Statistics and put into this report itself. This is the headline statistics for October 2023. Now, it sits back a couple of months before. The reason why is because it takes a while for all these statistics to get together. But it's quite interesting reading, considering the red ticket you can still get in the property market. Somebody said to me the other day, house prices are going to crash because the equity share the Scottish government had actually promised for first-time buyers has now been retracted. It's like, well, not necessarily. There's key indicators here, and I'll talk about them throughout this session here, about in terms of inflation, unemployment levels, and what's happening with base rates as well coming into the new year. And I'll give a good prediction for where we're going to be in 2024 in terms of house prices overall. If you've got any questions, please feel free to ask at the same time. I'm more than happy to answer your questions live on air. Let's dive in straight away and look at the headline statistics. The average property price in Scotland has risen, or it has risen. Yep, it has risen by 0.2% year on year, the annual price change. So we're still at 0.2%. You don't hear the news shouting about that, do you? They will probably shout about the fact that it dropped in 1 month by 0.5% rather than actually saying year on year it's 0.2%. So basically what we're saying is the average house price in Scotland is back where it was a year ago. So if you bought a year ago, you've not had any massive increase in house price or anything like that. It should be still the same right now. But the reality is you're not going to move out after a year moving into your house. So it's very unlikely. And in the last 4 years, it's gone up about 25% anyway. So for the people that have actually seen this small drop, if it is a small drop in the next coming months, it will be nothing in comparison to what has increased in the last 3 years. Okay, so the economic statement from the Office of National Statistics is actually saying average house price in Scotland increased by 0.2%. That's a provisional estimate, remember. They'll get more information in later on and they'll get the key data and then they'll revise that figure. And the 12 months to October 2023. And this was down from 0.8% revised estimate in the 12 months to September 2023 and was faster. It's faster than the UK average price annual inflation. The UK average price annual inflation is negative 1.2%, so minus 1.2%. So Scotland is faring extremely well in their housing market, but there is no surprise for the Scottish housing market. It has always been extremely resilient because it's still very affordable. Let's look at the average house price again, 191,000. Now, remember, it's an average. There's 50% of the housing stock less than that price. But if you take the average salary in Scotland, according to the government, is about 33,000, and divide it into the 191,233, 191,233 divided by 33, it still comes to 5.8 times the average multiplier. Now, anything below 6 is really good. 6 as an average multiplier is an extremely good market, an extremely affordable market still. So what is actually holding back the market overall in terms of what it was like last year? Well, we'll discuss that in a minute. Let's just finalise and go on this. They go on to say, the Scottish Office of National Statistics, on a seasonally adjusted basis, the average house prices in Scotland have actually decreased by 0.5% from September to October, but compared to an increase of 0.1% during the same period 12 months ago. So it's not huge amounts and huge swings in house prices like anybody predicted. So on a seasonally adjusted basis, average house prices in Scotland decreased by 0.3% between September and October. Remember, that's only 1 month. So comparing the provisional UK HPI, which is the house price index volume estimated for August 2022, with the provisional UK house price index for August 2023, the volume of transactions has actually decreased by 11.2% in Scotland and 16.2% in UK. Now, this is key here. The health of the property market is not necessarily down to house prices. That is all about the health of the finance market. That's considering the banks, because the banks lend against house price. Therefore, the house price is important to get finance and to get a mortgage. at that level, it's affordable to be able to buy the house. That's why house prices are so important, but they're important to the banks more than likely. And they're not really important to us as people unless we're exiting the market completely and we're getting all the money in our pocket and we're going to spend it on something completely different rather than buying another house. Because the reality is, if you're selling a house and you're buying a house and it's in the same area and yours has maybe dropped 5%, the next house will have dropped 5% as well. If you're, and if it's going up 5%, yours is going up 5%. The next house will have gone up 5% as well. So it's just swings and roundabouts when it comes down to it. The health of the property market, and as far as we're concerned, as far as you should be concerned as well, is the transactional numbers. In other words, how many properties are actually being sold year on year? How many properties are actually being sold month on month? Because the health, if the transactional numbers sold every single month are the same, it means we've got a healthy, buoyant housing market. And this means, and the reason for that is because it supports all the businesses that operate in that market to do these transactional house sales. Let me give you an example. If you had, for example, well, in Fife, let's look at Fife again. Fife's an easy one. 550 properties sold every single month. Now, if 1 month and 550 properties are actually sold, okay, and we take maybe 15,000 as the average amount that people will spend on their house once they move into it, maybe in the furniture and new fittings and fixtures, and bathrooms, kitchens, all the rest of it, and heating systems, maybe in carpets and curtains and decoration. So maybe on average 15,000. So 550 times 15,000. That means, for example, in the Fife area, every single month when these are sold, there's about £8.2 million being spent on housing improvements and people moving in. That's £8.2 million going to local businesses in Fife to support them and to keep people in jobs. Now that drops by 100 to 450, the transactional numbers. Then effectively what you're doing is you're losing, or the contractors out there are losing, £1.5 million in potential income. So there's £1.5 million in potential income lost out of that 8.2. Therefore, contractors then would then think, okay, so we've got too many people working for us now, or we can't order as much supplies, we can't order as much stock as well from our existing supplier. So that's why the market starts to contract if the transactional numbers get less. If the transactional numbers get more, the market goes up, and then the price goes up as well, and therefore services and more people are needed to recruit into that area in order to support the transactional numbers going up and the number of house sales happening. With estate agents, with solicitors, with mortgage brokers, with people fitting kitchens, with people fitting bathrooms, with people decorating, with people carpeting, with people plastering, with people fixing and repairing roofs, electricians, plumbers, and all the rest of it. All these people are actually employed in that industry because of the buoyant transactional number housing market, not prices. Prices has no effect on that at all with these jobs. So therefore, you want to have a healthy housing market and to support industries outside of this and support jobs outside of this as well. And that means you don't really want a huge improvement in the number of transactions actually sold. You don't want a huge decline in the number of transactions being sold. You just want to have an equilibrium year on year to support the current jobs and current industry and businesses surrounding round about it. That's why transactional numbers are important. We will talk about house prices right across Scotland. We'll also talk about house transactional numbers right across Scotland as well, because I've got all the data on that as well in this report. So hang tight and we'll talk about that. The Office of National Statistics is going to say that in Scotland, detached houses showed the highest annual percentage change out of all the property types, increasing by 2%. So increasing by 2% to the 12 months to October 2023. So detached properties have actually gone up by 2% year on year in Scotland to £350,000. Flats and maisonettes, apartments, maisonettes are two stories above a single level. So they're on the first story and the second story, that's a maisonette. Showed the lowest, put my teeth back in, the lowest annual price change, which has decreased by 1.8% in the 12 months to October 2023 to an average price of 128,000. Now, that could actually change as people are squeezed with the cost of living Prices maybe are actually higher. I'll talk about inflation in a minute, food prices and fuel prices and what's fueling inflation, excuse the pun. And then they go on to say as well that the highest annual percentage change was in Clackmannanshire, where the average house price has increased by 11.2% in the 12 months to October 2023 to 180,000. So there you go. So everybody thinks the market's actually stable, but in Clackmannanshire, it's gone up 11.2% year on year. The lowest annual percentage change was in West Lothian, where the average house prices have decreased by 4.5% in the 12 months to October 2023 to 203,000. Now, that's a regional thing. It'd be interesting to see if there's estate agents that are actually tuning into this right now in the West Lothian area. It could give us a reason why house prices in West Lothian have gone down by 4.5% year on year. Now, as with other indicators, must suggest here, must impress here, as with other indicators in the housing market, which typically fluctuate from month to month, it's important not to put too much weight on 1 month set of figures, but look at it on a month-by-month basis. So what annual price change over the last 5 years has taken place? Well, here's a chart I've made earlier. Annual price change, as we can see here over the last 5 years. Here it is here. In Scotland, average prices have increased by 0.2% in the 12 months to October 2023, down from 0.8% in the 12 months to September 2023. The annual price change by local authority for Scotland, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So there's the annual price change overall in a chart on a graph. So you see the annual price change was 2% in October 2019, goes down to 0 in April 2020. No surprise because of COVID. COVID hits, everybody comes out, and then boom. This was waiting to happen because this 2% was like this for the last 10 years after the credit crunch. It had never gone up dramatically since, but salaries and wages had gone up dramatically over that period of time in comparison to what UK house prices and Scottish house prices had gone up as well. Therefore, there was no surprise when an equilibrium and a realignment of prices actually were going to come in, and this boom happened as a result because people had more money to spend, therefore more disposable income month by month, therefore mortgages were so low that people can afford it, therefore they'd be able to afford a price of a house at a higher price point and be able to afford a bit more, and that's when prices actually started to go up and people started to get equity in their house as well and have more equity to put down because everybody had paid down on capital repayment mortgages rather than actually instant interest only mortgages because they'd all been removed. Also, everybody had been stress tested as well at higher rates. Therefore, they were getting mortgages on a more responsible level. Therefore, there was no surprise this happened in terms of this boom to equalise it out. And now that's over, it's actually come down. And what's happened in the rental market, the boom started about April 2021 and is actually following the same path, but actually is beginning to come down as well round about last month. Okay, so that's a like for like. As the housing market booms, the rental market usually follows after it by about 6 months to a year in the same pattern of behaviour. So what can we read into this? An annual house price change by local authority in Scotland in the last year on year. So let me just show you here. I'm going to zoom in on this and bring this up in a minute. Here we are right across every local authority. Right here. As you can see, Aberdeenshire not faring very well, 2.5% down, 199,000 for Aberdeenshire. You've got the Angus, Argyll and Bute, City of Aberdeen, not faring well either. But then that's Aberdeen, that's the oil industry. They're going through a huge transition to renewables, and it's going to take a long time of transition to do that. City of Edinburgh up 3.1% year on year, at 343,000 is the average price there. If we come into Dumfries and Galloway, you can see all yours in there as well. If you've got your own local authority, you can see Fife, for example, has gone up 1.7% year on year to 176,669, so up 1.7%. And you could also see the other ones. Moray jumped up 5%, North Ayrshire 2.1%, North Lanarkshire 3.4%. And up into all the average prices, and that makes up the whole Scottish average house price of 191,233, which is just down at the bottom here. If you can see that, I'll bring that out so you can see it just there, 191,233. Okay, so where does that leave us then in terms of house prices? Well, annual house price change in Scotland, for example, low numbers of sales transactions in some local authority areas, such as Orkney Islands and the Shetland Islands, can lead to a volatility in the series. While they'll make efforts to account for its volatility, the change in prices in these local levels can be influenced by the type and number of properties sold in every given period. Okay, so let's zoom in, and as we said, we've seen the local authority areas, and it'd be interesting to see the transactional areas. But actually, just let me see a hot chart here. We've got it by coloured region to give you an idea. Just if anybody responds to this better. So there's the regional areas, as we can see here. Everything in red is 230,000 above in terms of average house price. So you can see the real hot spots have got a lot higher in terms of price. You've got Perthshire, you've got the Highland and Islands, you've got over in the Edinburgh area as well. And as we come into the Aberdeenshire area, still high price point in comparison across in Glasgow. And you've got the Lothians as well over here. Dumfries and Galloway gets a bit more affordable. Fife is a lot more affordable as well. Middle of the ground, Dundee and Angus as well. Middle of the ground, more affordable. Over in Clackmannanshire and over there, still very, very affordable in terms of price point. The average, there's obviously, as an average, you've got to have somebody that's going to be lower, and that's the sort of areas over here on the west coast, down at southwest. Yeah, southwest, there it is there. Yeah, okay, I've got that right. Okay, so that's the prices. In October 2023, the most expensive area to purchase a property, there's the City of Edinburgh, 344,000. In contrast, the cheapest area to buy was actually in East Ayrshire, where the average cost 128,000. It's just there, East Ayrshire, just about in here somewhere. We can see it. We probably can't see it over here. It's hidden in there. It's probably that small in terms of what it is. You can't really see it for that reason. Okay, let's look at semi-detached average house price by property type in Scotland. Detached, you can see 350,000. It's gone up by 2%. Semi-detached gone up by 1.9% to 207,000. Terraced, 162,000, up by 0.3%. Flats, maisonettes down 1.18%, but still very affordable at 128,000. And that makes up the whole mix for the increase in the Scottish house price. Let's jump on to, this is transactional numbers. This is the most important thing, as I spoke about before. Is house prices is great for banks and affordability and lending, but the most important thing for us is the transactional numbers. But you can see right across the board, as they said in the beginning, the transactional numbers overall in the area and here have actually dropped year on year. The house price index numbers, the volumes have actually gone down by 11% in Scotland, which is really good actually. It was expected to be 15 or 20%, so it's actually really good. It's actually sustained at 11% just. In the UK overall, it's 16.2%, but no surprise it's gone down UK overall, because England would suffer a lot more because their prices are far higher in terms of price point. So you can see the transactional numbers in your own areas over there if you're looking from other areas outside Fife, Aberdeenshire, down, Angus down, Argyll and Bute, City of Aberdeen, Dundee. I can't see any areas that have actually gone up at all in comparison. Most areas on average have gone down over there. Falkirk actually stabilised, staying pretty well. Fife gone down by 618 to 539. That is a decrease of 79 properties on a transactional basis month on month. So 79 divided by 618 represents around about 12%. That's about the 11% on average. So average in comparison to everything else in terms of the market. Inverclyde's actually going up, transactional numbers, you can see there. But as I said before, overall, you can see last year at this time, they were selling every month in Scotland 9,500. This year, it's only 8,200. And that will affect industry. Why does that affect? Again, I come back to saying if 9,547 sold, 15,000 was getting spent on each house, you'd effectively have about 143 million being spent on these houses to get them refurbed on 15 grand each. But because of that, there's an income reduction year on year to local businesses of 1,192 times 15,000. There's an income reduction to local businesses of around about 17.8 million in the month in terms of income that they could be generating because of the reduction in the number of transactions month on month. So this is why the health of the economy and the health of the housing market especially is driven by the number of transactions and not the price of the properties. Okay, let's zoom on. Sales volumes year on year were faring pretty well. August 2019 at that time was 10,000 in 2019, 7,220, 10,000 in 2021. That was leveled out probably by the pandemic. It came down 2022 to 9,500, down to 8,200 in the August 2023. Property starts by new build. A new build on average and the price that people are paying is 330,000. An existing resale property is 187,000. That is a price differential between a new build and a resale of 142,000. In other words, this is why the council is reluctant to build new social housing, because the differential is almost about 60% more than actually buying existing stock. It's in the mix right now. This is why the council is embarking on a buyback policy of buying properties, ex-local authority properties, from homeowners right now and actually then putting them back into their stock, because it's cheaper for them to do that than actually build new houses. Now, personally, I think building new houses is better because we've got lack of supply. This is what's driving the prices up. So you really need to build houses. So they can't really afford not to build houses, in my opinion. But that's the way the council's operating right now. And the Scottish Government's actually endorsed that and told them to do that. Thus, they compete against first-time buyers, which is another thing that I generally don't think they should be doing. But then that's up to them for their policy and what they need to decide. The things driving the market right now, buyer status, here we go. So buyer status, first-time buyers are paying 152,000 for a property. Former owner-occupiers are paying 232,000 for their property as well. Funding status, cash buyers, they're getting 173,000. They're buying a property. Mortgage holders are paying 199,000. And that's it. Okay, so what is driving this market? Let me talk about this. What is ultimately driving this market right now? Where will we be next year when we're going into 2024 in terms of house prices, the index, and where everything is? Okay, there's a number of factors driving this market, which will continue to drive this market, and there's three of them particularly. There's unemployment level, there's the inflation level, and then there's also base rates. These are the three key drivers of the housing market in Scotland and the UK, and also Fife itself in particular. Now, let me explain. The unemployment statistics was out last week anyway, and it's stabilised again. It stayed the same as the month before at 4.2% unemployment level. Now, full employment is between 4 and 6% in economic terms. It's assumed that the 4% people unemployed are actually retraining for other jobs because these jobs are still available. There's still fewer people chasing, still a lot more people chasing fewer jobs. Therefore, price and this is another one that will drive it as well, actually. Wage increases and salary increases will be important to drive it as well. And salary increases are actually more than inflation right now. So there could be an implication for inflation getting driven up as a result of that. Let me come on to inflation then and talk about inflation and where we are with that. Inflation sitting around about 3.6%. It's come down from 4.6%, 3.9%, come down from 4.6% last month. The thing driving the decrease in inflation right now, there's only one thing driving the decrease in inflation, really, which is petrol prices, which is, that's driving down. Everybody knows is at the pump. Now, there's something going on in the Red Sea right now where there's pirates actually attacking the petrol tankers before they go into the Suez Canal to cut over to get into Holland to drop off all the shipments. So what's happened is the petrol tankers are actually, the oil tankers are having to go all the way around the bottom of Africa at the Cape and actually come all the way up on the west side of Africa and then drop their oil off at the ports over in Europe. Overall, so it's increasing their costs of transport of the oil. Therefore, there's potential that petrol prices could end up going back up as a result of what's going on in the Red Sea just now and the pirates taking control of the oil tankers. So that could drive that up. Food inflation is still very high at 9.2%. That's factored into that 3.6% as we talked about in terms of where inflation is right now. The Bank of England still got a target of 2% overall. However, they've met their target, what they would expect it for the end of the year to get round about 5%. So they might still be okay because the Bank of England, remember, has got full autonomy to try and curb inflation and by increasing or decreasing base rates, interest rates to us. Swap rates between banks are still extremely good. So in other words, the interbank lending, banks lend with each other, is really good because our outlook had been Standard & Poor's and Moody's, who are credit rating agencies for businesses and economies and countries, have actually still upgraded us in the UK as a very good market to keep investing in. Therefore, our lending from other areas is lower as a result. Therefore, banks can lend at lower levels than what the base rate is right now. There's no surprise. We're getting mortgages still around about 4.5%, under 5% itself. And yet base rates are sitting at 5.25. And that was unheard of before. But that's what's driving that. So base rates have gone up, and most mortgage holders are now obviously having to pay, they've got the mortgage and it's coming out of their term, they're paying a higher rate. I would encourage you, if you're on a variable rate amount just now, to go and speak to a mortgage broker and potentially think about fixing your rates. Next year, they're talking about base rates decreasing. There's an indication, but I don't think it's over yet. And I don't think it's over because the potential with what's going on with the inflation right now and the volatility of that. And also there's other things outside of our control that we cannot control. We are in UK, we are very dependent on bringing imports in from other countries for food. We don't produce a lot of food for ourselves as other European countries do. And that's why their inflation's a lot lower as a result, where our food inflation is kept higher because we're having to bring a lot of imports in from other countries and they're just putting the price up. And we've got no choice but to suck it up, I suppose. And that's why food inflation is sitting at 9.2%. So, and is inflation at 2% right now? Potentially it could be. We just don't know it yet because it's like a cruise ship. It's left the dock and it picks up speed. It has to slow down. It has to start slowing down way before it gets anywhere near the harbour to stop. So we don't know at this point in time. The Bank of England doesn't know if they should be reducing rates in order to get inflation at the 2%. Could it overshoot that and actually come down? And that's kind of a bad thing if that happens, because stagflation which is a negative inflation, or a zero inflation, which is definitely what you do not want. You do not want that in an economy because that's not good for business. That's not good for people investing in your currency as well and investing in your country as well. Stagflation is not a good thing. So you don't want to overshoot it. So Bank of England signalled, though, that they possibly might, but not in the short term. They probably won't decrease base rates overall. So that's why I said, if you're thinking about a mortgage and you're thinking about doing your mortgage and refixing your mortgage because it's out of its term now, just think about doing it now. And don't actually think that you should wait just in case. You never know. You're better to have certainty than actually to take a gamble. And I'm doing it personally with some of my buy-to-let stuff. You know, I'm putting on 5-year deals fixed. I'm happy with that. The numbers work. I'm okay with that. If it goes down, so what? If it goes up, so what? It's fine. I know exactly where I am then. That's the whole point of planning fiscally. Okay, hopefully you got something out of that. And if you've got any questions for later on, please feel free to ask them. Until next time, guys, I'm Jim Parker for Fife Properties TV.